after the exam, I didn't know this person, but she heard me complaining on the phone about how hard the test was. These credentialing programs.
Yeah, because that's what I don't think that they're for. So we're going to get to the bottom of that right now. Welcome to Trade Secrets.
Love starting off the podcast with a disagreement.
You gotta love it off the screen before we start disagreeing about the topic. But happy to have you today. Again, if you're watching or listening, like us and follow us on your favorite channel, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever the case might be. Today we are going to talk about Paige's most recent accomplishment. She's very excited about that. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to tell us all about this beautiful pin that she's wearing, which has 4 fancy letters CCIM on it.
Yes. And I don't know where yours is.
I forgot
request a new one. So, yes, CCIM.
I got it so long ago that they don't make them like that anymore.
You just request a new one.
Yeah.
They did a whole new rollout last year.
All right. Well, if you're listening, CCIM, please send me a new pin. 420 Fort Duquesne Boulevard.
Yeah. So CCIM, that stands for Certified Commercial Investment Member. And basically it is I would say, ultra condensed, very focused curriculum and portfolio requirement for commercial real estate. It's 160 hours of coursework, a portfolio of qualifying experience. It's either 10 qualifying direct involvement in 10 qualifying deals for $30 million or more, or direct involvement in a minimum of 30 deals of any transaction amount. And then once you've done the 160 hours of coursework and put together the portfolio that gets approved, then you have to sit for a 6-hour comprehensive exam.
Like blah, 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 blah. why'd you get it? Why'd you go get it?
Because I started asking you questions about numbers you'd rattle off in meetings, and you said, please, God, just take CCIM 101. So here I am.
Right, so CCIM 101 is a finance class directed at commercial real estate. Yeah,
so all of the courses revolve around some facet of market analysis as it pertains to commercial real estate. So there's just general financial analysis. There's a market analysis of understanding what's going on around you and what the areas that you're looking at for any specific thing can support in terms of new development or new uses. And then there's also a course that focuses on the numbers, the financial aspect of the user decisions that a user might be making about expanding an office space, leasing versus buying a building, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's an investor analysis course as well.
So you've been in the business for how long?
Just over 4 years,
right.
4.5 years.
And you've got this awesome designation now, which we are super proud of you. You should be proud of it.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then there's Michael over here, just bourboning away. But he
is that a squawk?
was off the rails from the peanut gallery. But anyways, so you have been in the business for a few more years than that, maybe 10x. And if you're quick at math, that's 40-some. You don't have the CCIM.
I do not have the CCIM or the SIOR designation.
Which we'll get to that in a little bit.
He has the designation of wisdom.
Yeah.
He has the white hair designation.
So why no CCIM for you?
Well, I did actually start going towards my CCIM designation when I was in Washington, and I was with another firm there.
And that was really early in your career.
That was probably within the 3-4 years.
Sure.
Which is when they started to send people to CCIM with the organization that I was with. But that's when I left. When I left Washington and I moved to West Virginia. And at the time, there aren't a lot of commercial brokers that were in West Virginia. So my election then was to go back to school and get my MBA. So that's what I focused on. And my practice there was a lot more development than it was than it was advisory services or brokerage at the time. But nonetheless, CCIM is a very intensive commercial real estate oriented organization, and the training that they give you is outstanding. It is very finite, it's very defined on every aspect, or the aspects of financial analysis, a site analysis, all the things that would affect specifically commercial real estate, separating it completely from the residential side of a real estate practice.
Sure, and it's fascinating. I've now had the pleasure of being CCIM for, I think, 15 years, and SIOR for like another 8. But nobody knows what they are. Everybody, you just said you get your MBA. Everybody knows what that is, right? So one of the most fascinating things to me throughout the years has been how many people make fun of those 4 or 8 letters, as the case might be, who don't know the industry. And then the people who are inside the industry who do know how different it is. So can you talk to that, Paige, about your experience now within the industry, people being like, that's XYZ, or people outside the industry being what in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting for me over the last week and a half since I did get my designation, because, after you take that 6-hour exam, like there's nothing left in your brain. Like
Pause real quick. Didn't you take it with somebody who had just taken the bar?
Well, yeah, I was after the exam. I didn't know this person, but she heard me complaining on the phone about how hard the test was, and she tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Did you just take the CCIM final?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I passed the bar." She's like, "I am a barred attorney in 2 states." And she said that was harder than
Licensed attorney in 2 states, not barred.
Not barred from practice, but she passed the bar. She passed the bar in 2 states and said that this exam was harder. She did not pass it her first time around, had to retake it. That alone, just having to retake that again would have been put
daunting.
Me in tears. Yeah. Right. And another close friend of mine that I got to sit for the exam with, he has his master's in finance, and he said it was harder than any exam he took in his multiple years of postgraduate schooling to get his master's. So it's no joke. I mean, I do really feel like I'm glad people undersold how hard it was to me, or I think I would have probably been a lot more hesitant to do it. But yeah, after you pass the test and you get to celebrate that night with everybody else who knows what you just went through, it felt really great. And so many people did reach out to me in the industry and said, "Hey, congratulations, like that's really incredible. Like that's really like kind of sets you apart for being earlier in your career and being able to accomplish that." And then outside, I mean, I would tell my friends I'm taking these classes, and no one really got it. And it wasn't until, like my friends and family seeing my professional network's reactions to the announcement on LinkedIn that they really realized, like, oh, that was like kind of a big deal for you, right? So yeah, it wasn't until recently that was on anyone's radar in my personal life. But the people who've been through it obviously understand the commitment and the intensity.
I think the accomplishment it is an incredibly specific designation. I mentioned the MBA, which is really more of a 20,000-foot view of looking at a lot of different things and just seeing how they interrelate together. CCIM is specific to commercial real estate and various aspects of it. The 101 course is probably one of the best finance courses that you can take, specific
Shout out to Bill Overman.
commercial real estate. And it is a different animal. And that designation is, when you see it, these people have been through the ringer, and they understand when they throw out numbers, it's backed by a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think back, I was my first year in the business, and this industry has a tendency of just hiring people and saying, "Here, jump in the pond and see if you can swim." And my analytical brain told me I knew nothing about real estate or finance. I mean, I had a master's of business administration degree, but half a dozen finance classes. Still felt like I was so out of my element. But yet the industry doesn't really push getting to understand the finance as much as go find prospects, cold call. And I felt so naked not knowing the finance part that my original reason for CCIM was 100%. I wanted to know the math better than anybody because I felt like if I knew the math, then that would help garner clients. And, after having successfully gone through it, and yes, now knowing the math fairly well, it is still fascinating to me how few people in our business actually understand the economics of the things that they're buying and selling and leasing.
But I also think that you have to have at least the word I'm going to use is failure, but failure in understanding. You get out into the business and you hear these terms and you think that you have an idea, and these courses actually clarify everything. So you do realize, okay, I got that wrong. I didn't understand how that worked. Now I have a much better understanding of it, because I think if you just dumped in and said, okay, I'm going to start taking CCIM classes, I don't think it would have as much bearing as had you not had the experience of being in the field, let's say, or in the industry.
Yeah. I don't know how, there's a lot of residential agents that start taking CCIM classes thinking that it will, like, as a gateway into, to, have a little more credibility to start working on more commercial. And, I mean, it's just such a different world. I can't imagine going from something like residential and then trying to just jump right in and understand the concepts of the things that they discussed in, especially 101. I think that would be really difficult to jump right. And actually now CCIM, because of that, has kind of rolled out like a certificate course. So it's not a designation. The people don't become CCIMs, but there's a certificate course, I think, that's going to be rolled out. That's meant to kind of bridge that gap so that residential people that are curious will be able to take that certificate course before just like jumping right into 101, 102, 103, 104.
And it's not just the exams, and it's not just the course. It's the fact that you've had practical experience being involved in transactions of that size or that volume. I'm going to kind of go back to the apprenticeship. When you wanted to be a blacksmith, you started to work with a blacksmith, and then 10 years later, you had pretty much done everything that they had done.
Yeah.
And you became a blacksmith, but you didn't realize exactly when that occurred. You can go out there and you can take the test and you can do all that other stuff, but if you haven't had those experiences of being out there doing transactions of X size.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that. Like, I mean, I was blah lying it to start because I just figured it was too in the weeds for the beginning of the podcast, but fast forward, you can go take these, you can go take these classes, finish each one of them. There is a test at the end of each one of them, and you can get to the point where you want to become a designee, but you actually can't sit for the final because you didn't submit a portfolio. I mean, you've been fortunate enough to work on some really amazing things, and you were nervous about the portfolio submission because, as Michael said, they want to be sure that you actually are living it, not just great on the book.
Right, or just like riding someone's coattails.
Right.
Yeah. I don't exactly know what you wanted me to talk about there, but
just the experience of having to prove that, I actually worked on these projects.
I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I think it's smart, and I almost think that they should require people to start to maybe have some kind of component of a portfolio done, like be active in commercial real estate before they start taking it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like my university degree. Like, I learned the content in order to pass the test, and I think someone could feasibly do that with CCIM without practical, experience, like with the application of the concepts. But it's so much more meaningful and valuable when you're able to learn this stuff and immediately start applying it in your day-to-day with clients. So for me, that was the real value. It's not just like I passed a test, I got these letters after my name. I learned this knowledge, and I learned it at the same time as practicing it, so I could immediately implement it. And then it stayed relevant with me throughout, the 2 years that I was taking the courses. And, it's practical knowledge, and being able to practice it as you are learning it. It just helps it stick more, and I think that's the real value.
I think the other part is that this is knowledge and learning that you use every single day in every aspect of what you do. I don't necessarily call back on my marketing classes when I got my master's, or could go through and tell you in depth what the Marshallian scissors are in an economics class. But it is one of those things where every single day you draw back on, these are the tools that I have in the kit now, and I do use them constantly, and I give them to my clients, and they therefore have more information to make better decisions. I did want to add another thing too, that designation right there, even though a lot of people don't actually understand what it is, those people in the commercial real estate universe will look at that and see those initials behind your name, and you are immediately validated as, I know my stuff, because I've gone through, I've gotten that pedigree of, I have these many transactions under my belt, and I've achieved this designation. A lot of our work is inbound, and some of it is outbound. So when you deal with other professionals in other areas of the country, they like to know that the person on the other end of that phone is someone that I can talk to, and they're going to actually understand what it is that I'm saying, and you've paid that debt already.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that if I meet somebody for the first time who's in the real estate space and they have the designation, my reaction to them, or my assumptions, which I realize assumptions are not that great, but my assumptions about their ability to communicate with me on a level of expertise that I've come accustomed to expect is different than when they don't have it. Now, that's not to say that everybody with the CCIM is operating at the highest level in the business, but it certainly is okay, I will take this person seriously now.
It's another hurdle. And, I have 40 years of experience doing this. So if anyone wants to know what my bona fides are, we just play the Kevin Bacon game till we get some kind of common relationship. But the designation, though, is just...
Oh, shit. If I knew that was an option, I just would have waited.
Yeah, come on. No, but that's the thing. You have instantly gained credibility 4 years in the business that otherwise it's really hard to get. Which I think segues into this like commercial versus residential conversation about real estate licensing. Can't really speak to the whole country, but the lion's share of the country, and definitely in Pennsylvania, there is one real estate license for all parties, commercial, residential, and resimercial.
Well, resimercials.
A whole nother
Just a
thing,
blend.
but it's just a blend, a real blend.
it's not a real thing.
Should it be?
But that's the thing. Should it or shouldn't it be the same license?
No, 1,000% not. 1,000% not. And we were actually discussing this at
We're going to make some real friends today.
I know. We were discussing this at a CCIM happy hour the other night, and talking about, like, would any of us see that change in our lifetime? And the consensus was probably not, because there's just, I don't know if it's like a lobby or what.
Vinegar 5 years in the business, I was like, I am going to make this change.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
somewhat,
waste of time.
But and I won't even pretend to understand the inner workings of the real estate commission and the National Association of Realtors lobby. Like, I don't understand. I don't want to understand it, but I would love it to change, because I don't think it's in the best interest of, like, the general consumer, that with the real estate license we all get, which barely weeds out anyone. You can sell someone's $200,000 home, or you can sell someone's $20 million industrial complex. Like, those things are not the same. And I think ultimately it can give us a negative, like if someone is just, we've encountered a lot
It's
of
like,
people that have
honestly,
negative impressions of commercial real estate brokers because they had the person that sold them their home also dabbles in commercial real estate and then like encouraged them or influenced them in some way to make a decision that didn't end up panning out for them well financially in the long run. And so it gives other commercial agents, it can cast us in a negative light or give us a poor reputation that like we're just trying to convince people to spend money without any actual like good professional guidance. So I want that. I will die on that hill. I 1000% think that they should be two different licenses. And that's also why I wanted to pursue the CCIM, because I do feel that it is some measure of like setting me apart, saying like, you know, I didn't just go from, you know, selling 3 houses to deciding that I wanted to jump into commercial on a whim or.
In the obligations that you had, because it's been a while, I don't even remember them, that you had to get your real estate license for the state. Did you learn anything in that experience that you use today?
No.
I mean, that I think says it all, really. That's the.
No, I mean, I
Okay,
just got pissed off because I spent
'Cause you were already in
75
it, right?
hours going through like
Right.
stuff that's, I would say 65 of the 75 hours, if not more,
I think
were
it's-
all about selling homes. And like the book of that my inspector when I bought my house gave me, that book could have taught me half of what the real estate licensing course taught.
I would not throw the baby out with the bathwater there. I think that there are certain things in taking the principles of real estate course that they're good things for people to know, not for what we do. It has nothing to do with what we do.
Well, that was my only question. I'm saying
Right.
it's good for what they're doing.
Yeah, it's good for what they're doing, and I think that there's it's like anything else. There's the cream of the crop in this side of the industry, and there's the cream of the crop in
Yeah.
that side of the
I mean, if I had my
Certainly, and
druthers,
not- yeah.
CCIM would be the licensing body for the commercial real estate experience.
Yeah.
That would be
It would
fantastic.
be incredible. So mark that in your calendar, CCIM, and make
That
that
is-
happen.
That is a fight that I'd
I'm
prefer
sure
to
they
let
would
somebody
love that,
else
yeah.
do.
And I don't know the numbers,
but,
but maybe somebody could figure them out for me as we're talking. The amount of CCIM designees compared to the amount of or compared to the amount of NAR licensees in the nation. I mean, it's like,
Oh,
It's
it's
a-
got to be
There's-
something
there's just
that's
over, I think,
ludicrous.
like 20,000, just over 20,000
yeah, the number I don't know is how many licensees
designees.
across the country there are.
I know that number. What's the NAR?
1.5 million NAR.
1.5 million
1.5 million.
members of the National Association of Realtors.
Yeah. So it's insane.
There's also some, I should probably know more about this. I don't. I just got licensed I just got designated last week. Like, but there is some kind of symbiotic relationship with NAR and CCIM now.
Yes. I mean, we're not going to go into
Yeah.
that rabbit hole of politics, but to be a member of one, you've got to support the other, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So I think symbiotic is maybe more like forced participation. Because if you're CCIM, you want to say that you're the best of the best and holding everybody accountable, but then none of your members are part of the National Association, NAR, National Association of Realtors. Like, it's a big slap in the face. So I think they agreed to agree that if you're going to get the designation, you need to support your local chapter of NAR. It is something that I am, this many years later, super glad that I got. It was forced education. And I probably don't use the designation in its networking capacity the way that some do. But it is certainly something that we're really proud of you for getting. And now we can't wait for you to get the next 4 letters. Audible groan. And this is the one I'm more interested with, Michael, that he doesn't have. So it's the SIOR, Society of Industrial and Office Realtors. And the quick difference is that instead of being an education-driven organization, it's a performance and ethics-driven organization, whereby you have to have proved in your local market that you are literally one of the top performers based on being accountable for a 5-year track record of production, and then making sure that the local real estate community acknowledges your ethical behavior and understanding the fiduciary responsibilities of this industry. So I'm active, as we you guys both know, but Michael, that's something you've also not felt compelled to do, but
and reasons for it. Now, if I were in, I guess you really have to factor in the fact that it's West Virginia, and it's
meaning your home base.
My home base, and well, for 20 some odd years, that's where the practice was.
Mm-hmm.
And in that particular market, there weren't a lot of CCIMs or SIORs, and there was more than enough work for the small group of commercial real estate brokers that could actually do work there. So my inbound referrals were always there. My development work was always there. So there was really no reason to extend it out, because these are time commitments and these are education commitments, and I felt that
Financial
at the time,
commitments.
Financial commitments also. I felt at the time it was something I didn't necessarily have to do. Now, network-wise, it would have been fantastic, but then I didn't really notice it because the majority of the inbound work I was doing anyways. So had I been in a different market, now I came from the Washington, D.C. market originally, I was pursuing these at that time, and it was the shift to West Virginia that made you look the other way, and obviously going back to college to get my master's there, that was a different thing, and then focusing on, as I mentioned, a lot of development work. It just seemed to go by the wayside, and you weren't surrounded by it constantly. This is something you should do. I believe at the time that I was in the state, there was only one SIOR.
Okay.
And so it wasn't something that was around you every minute. And now, had I been in the Pittsburgh market earlier, I probably would have pursued these things.
Yeah, and to put things in perspective for the listener, there's millions of licensees across the country. There's 20+ thousand CCIMs. There's 3,700 SIORs globally. So it is a small fraction of the universe. And for me, I think the networking is incredible. But most importantly, the peer-to-peer education, like the learning from the best of the best and putting yourself in a room with, next week we're going to be down in Amelia Island for one of the 2 semi-annual, I should say, global conferences where plus or minus 1,000 SIORs from across the globe literally will embark on Amelia Island, and to feel so prepared and uneducated in a room, even with the amount of success that we have had as a company and as an individual, it's a pretty powerful thing to surround yourself with.
True. And just to go back to
People.
validate the numbers, when you talked about all those numbers, in West Virginia, for the past 20 years, there are only 5 firms that actually do have a commercial real estate practice. And of the entire state, I was the only advisor that traveled. So it was just a very small circle.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's an incredible organization to be a part of. And then the education component that the organization provides to its members to really be thought leaders is something special. So selfishly,
that's the most important piece right there.
Yeah.
It's the constant improvement as you progress in this industry. And so that typically when you speak with people with these designations, they are on the cutting edge of their craft.
Yeah, and I think, just to kind of reiterate and bring it home, when we do multi-market work, and, we're looking for a reliable, trusted partner that's across the country that helps us with, like, the things that someone needs to be in person to do in that market. Like, the first place we look is CCIM and SIOR, and, in
CCIM, SIOR, privately owned business.
Yeah, and,
Because those people have set themselves apart and recognize that they've put their own kind of skin in the game. There's no doubt.
And that was another thing is like, the fact that we are seeking that out in partners that we work with, obviously, like, reinforced to me that these are valuable credentials and valuable education and experience to have. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are super pumped that you did it and you passed. You were all paranoid and
Oh my God,
it was
terrible.
never in question. I mean, come on. Crazy talk. But so that's the Totum trade secrets about licensing law a little bit and CCIM and SIOR designation. So if you're out there and you're listening, pay attention to the people that you're hiring, whether it's for real estate or anything else, because some people take a lot of pride in their craft and work really hard at educating themselves to be giving the best advice possible. And hopefully you're working with somebody who's taken that position you're giving them very seriously. So with that, any other closing comments, or are we good?
I think we're good.
Well, congrats. Cheers to Paige.
Thanks.
Cheers.
My little Five
Appreciate
Guys
it.
cup and some bourbon. And welcome to CCIM.
Thanks.
And thanks for listening. Like us, love us, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening. Pleasure takes you. So have a great day.